Hello, welcome, Abhijit, to this discussion on your film, Dhrubor Aschorjo Jibon, which
Thank you.
some of us in Kolkata Film Festival liked a lot. And you were given this best Bengali film in the Bengali panorama of Kolkata Film Festival, and congrats.
Thank
And
you.
as a jury member, I can say that we had we had very limited. We had two films before us to discuss, and nobody had any doubt it must go to you. So that is your the work. This thing. In fact, we didn't see it in Ravindra Bhavan. I had to. We were because that day. Mr. Gautam Ghosh's film was being screened, so he insisted that we must see that. So we had to see it in a screener. And my colleague who saw it before me, he just called me within half an hour and said, "Dada, we have found the film." So that was the kind of response. And what I liked most is that your dedication to the senior painters, artists, and which you bring in the initial, the introductory uh, animation very beautifully. You almost tell the story in that introduction itself, what you are going to see. And that I think that the entry portion is it's I think I always feel that it's very important for a film, especially the debut filmmaker, because you are going to tell the world this is what you are. And was it? Let me start by asking you: was it your well thought out strategy to not just give the names of the people, painters or artists there, but to take something from them and put it in your film?
Yeah, so see, as you know that nowadays a career of a filmmaker is very uncertain. So especially in Bengal, where our films are getting less and lesser budget in every year, and it's a very difficult to find a good producer for a project. Now the thing is that when we decided to make the film, uh, we were sure on one thing. We were very much on the same page that our focus will be the philosophy of the story. You have a certain philosophy of life and time and our decisions,
Hmm.
and we thought that to create four different world, we need to go to four different painters whom I respected a lot from my childhood,
Hmm.
and they had a certain philosophy in their life. They sacrificed a lot to create something which is truly from the root. Like Jamira really chose the uh, folk arts. Somebody here call it as crop, somebody call it here in Portochitro. Okay,
Hmm.
so it's a kind of a art which people used to do in Orissa and in Bengal,
Hmm.
and so the folk artists used to tell stories through it. So
Hmm.
the greatness of those four artists, all of them, Gagan Tega, Bikash Bhattacharya, and Vinod Bihari Mukherjee, was
Hmm.
so immense that we thought that we should be very cautious on that sense that we need to give them a proper tribute to create their world. So we studied their painting, we tried to understand their philosophy on for which they are made those masterpieces, and based on that we created mainly on themes and we recreated some images. But as you know, like it all help us to tell the story.
Yes. And in fact, I like the way you went, the Visurgent work of Mr. Tagore, the way you
Yeah.
integrated into the film. I
Yeah.
think it's very few people achieve that kind of, I would say, seamless perfection of adapting that painting into a scene, which
Yeah.
was really, which was, I liked it a lot.
Thank
Because
you so
to explain to the people who have not seen the film, one chapter of that film, it ends in with there is a mention about it earlier in the gallery, and then the political story of it ends with the Visarjan, which is also a political Visarjan of the character. After a bomb blast in a party office, it's like a Visarjan of the evil or whatever is considered to be God. It has been discarded. So that I think that I think is that's the philosophy of the film which I liked most. In fact, that should be the philosophy of a good film. I feel so. And but let's come to the initial idea. How did it strike you? This whole thing, the Dhrubor Aschorjo Jibon, because you are taking a young man's life and going about it. That he's an orphan and he has a girlfriend whom he has attached, but he's not always in the right track. But he's trying to be, it's full of contradictions, but he's always trying to get better of the situation, in a positive way. So what was their initial thought process? What was the inspiration?
So it was actually first, it came in my mind when we were in a very dark phase, the entire world, during the COVID period, during the lockdown. And that time, some very near people of mine died, and some of us are lucky to survive. But I understood one thing there, that how fragile our life is and how much it is decided based on our decision or some other people's decision who are in power. So, how can a decision change a life path of man's? And that was one thing that I wanted to explore. And I explored it, I tried to explore it in a different way, in a philosophical way, in a metaphysical way, in an artistic way. And therefore, and as you know that it's a kind of a thing that actually made us think that what actually life means for all of us, like when you see that how fragile a life can be.
Yes.
So that was the initial seed of thought from where I got that idea, that I want to do something where I want to show that a decision can take you to a complete different path of life.
In fact, the layering part of it, in fact, very few people like Ritik Khatakal done this layering so well. It's like my friend John Abraham, the filmmaker, used to say, when you are seeing a Khatak film, don't see it plainly. There is one level which you see, there is, underlying layers behind it, behind each thing which he's seeing. So you have to be very careful in even seeing a film, because the filmmaker has layered it so many things inside. I think which is very rare in the young filmmakers, which you Abhijit has achieved, which is very refreshing. For the simple reason that that's a good film or any work of good art has to be layered. It's not just plain storytelling or plain one subject thing, which people keep debating in the film about that issue, this issue. It's not just that. You get 2 hours and you have to say whatever you want to say and reach maximum number of people with different kind of audience. I'm sure people in the US will see it in a different way.
Yeah,
People outside Bengal will see it in a different way. People
yeah,
in Bengal will see it in a different way. So I think
yeah, actually,
that
yeah.
that's the beauty of what you created. I thought, in fact, that is what my colleague immediately said, that he has layered it so well that you will like it for sure. That's what he told me.
Yeah, that is true. Actually, in a way that when I was in US in last year for teaching in a US university. So that time I had screened the film in some of the universities. So yeah, I got a complete different response there. And
Yes.
even from different people from different demographics, you have a different philosophies on life.
Yes.
And that really is very fascinating, that what a film can do to you. And I think that it's that you really honored me to say in the same sentence with me, and whom you referred, because he's really a maestro, Ritik Khatak, and we
Yes.
are just a student of filmmaking right now, because this is my first feature film.
Yeah.
And I think that we are all trying to, uh, all artists at some point of time, try to understand the meaning of life, try to understand the complexity of life by their
Yes.
own personal experience.
Yes.
So we those time those people lived in a different socio-political life, and now in our current world we are living in another reality of life, and
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
uh, it's changing, the technology and the lifestyle are changing like in every year. So
Mm.
that's why you can see that we have actually incorporated a different aspect, like
Mm.
from God to science fiction. There are different aspects in the same film.
Yes. Yes. And one another thing which I notice is that the way you uh, treat time, the concept of time in your film, especially the first chapter. The man gets shot, but then people generally think that, oh, the film is over. Well, how will you carry the film forward? We just rewind the whole thing and give it another option. The lead character is given another option to
Yeah,
to to live. So I think that I was we were I had the privilege of had a long interview with Christoph Sanusi last year in Toronto, and he kept talking about the time. How do you treat time in a film? And which
yeah,
I was really surprised that your film reminded me of his concept of time. That how
yeah,
do you treat time? Because each as filmmakers you can recreate or you can go back, come back. That aspect. Which a
mm,
lot of the people will try to handle it and fall flat. And
yeah,
what is I think you have successfully handled it. I'm again being
thank
appreciating
you.
not just this thing, but what is your personal take on it? Because the
Yeah.
time handling time in 2 hours in a film is a major task for any filmmaker.
You see, as a student of film, we learned that when the film first came in the arena of artists, there was a big debate whether film is a separate art or not, because film has different art element like photography, drama, literature, acting. But whether a film is a separate art or not, there was a big debate. But then there
Yes.
were a lot of Russian filmmakers, and they gave a lot of emphasis on the editing part of movie, which is unique in this art. Like,
Yeah, the montage of Eisenstein. Yeah, yes,
yeah,
yes.
so
Yeah,
the editing part is something which is a very stronger element in filmmaking process, and it empowers the filmmakers in a different way. Like, it sometimes it is very closer to music, or it is a very closer how our mind works, because
mm,
our minds both, we have memories of past, and we can also imagine the future.
yes.
The same way, the editing, you have time of future and the past. Now, when you talk about, when you try to create emotions around that, around the current complexity of a modern man who has to deal with his past and who has to always worry about the future, you that reflects in your editing.
Yeah,
I think it's our experience which goes to our editing work, and that somehow, for case of Dhrubo, who, as you know, that the English translation of the name is The Strange Life of Dhrubo, and
yeah,
that is what I think. Like, when I discuss with people as a one-to-one discussion, all have a very strange life, in a form that how the different incident change the path of our life. So
mm,
that is how, what is the reason that we change in a multiple way. And
okay.
there is also a metaphysical reason behind it, because, as you know, as per quantum physics, each of your decision, creates a different world of multiverse.
Yes.
So that is one of the reasons that each time Dhrubo has living in different skin and different parallel worlds.
Hmm. Yeah, that's see, handling that different worlds and different time zones is something which is very difficult, for ordinary, in even good films. How you
Yeah,
handle it, that's and without any, visual and narrative jerks, which I think you have achieved. But then I thought the last episode of you know many of my colleagues in the jury also thought that you don't actually don't need it, because otherwise also the otherwise also the film is complete. They thought that you are stretched a little more to say something which you already said, more effectively. That's your decision. But uh, the way the we handle the Dhrubo's life from the orphanage to you know jumping into the time, with the river, showing the life flows. River is always life for filmmakers
yeah,
and artists. So that coming to that, and then there is this girl, the motif of girl. Initially, she says, "I know this. You always think, why don't you mend your ways?" That kind of advice. And towards the end, she says, "Look, we were always walking towards each other," which was, I think, very, very, at one level, very philosophical, at the other level, very humane also, because how do you become close to some people and not so close to others, because of the attraction, or mental and physical and also philosophical thing, which you I think you got it from the beginning onwards, from the orphanage to this thing. But the way you handle that, um, uh, you know, um, human trafficking, that was a little intriguing. How what was the whole thing about? Because that was, I thought, that is all too intriguing and too black for a movie like this.
yeah. So it came from the artist. So the third story was a tribute to Bikash Bhattacharya,
Yeah.
and Bikash Bhattacharya was a painter who did a series on social horror.
Hmm.
So, and we tried to incorporate the social horror in the third chapter. So it's like the real horror does not come from a ghost or any supernatural things. The real horror comes from your very near people who are around you. And it's, if you see that there are some Shakespearean drama in the entire film, where we have a kind of a decision to be or not to be, and
Yeah.
where your scene actually goes back to your parents,
Hmm.
because there is also always a transition of scene, and and how the world works, like uh,
Hmm.
at the beginning of the story, how they killed a trafficker to find out at the end that his parents were part of it. So
Yeah.
that is
That's a
the,
very, very black realization which
yeah, yeah,
the world
yeah,
gets it. And I think that you bought it. I think coming to that, the tribute to artists, each of your chapters is conceived as a tribute to one of the artists, is it not?
yes, yes, yes,
The first being Gemini Roy, because you show the motifs of the paintings.
yes,
Second,
yes,
Tagore, and the
yeah,
third is Bikash Bhattacharya, and the
because
fourth
yes,
being Vinod Bihari,
Binod Bihari Mukherjee, who was a
blind
great,
artist. Yeah.
yeah, was a, because his art are very famous, and he was also the teacher of Maestro Satyajit Ray.
Abhijit Ray, yeah,
So
I know that. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
so Satyajit Ray made a documentary called The Inner Eye on
Yeah,
him.
I've seen it. Yes, yes.
Yes, and if you see, the first scene itself is a tribute that in the documentary, Binod Bihari, in his old age, when he was completely blind, he was making a mural,
Mm.
and we actually recreated the same thing that where Rini is creating the mural when she
Right.
lost her sight. But
Yes.
the question
Yeah,
is that
I think to sum up your view, I think that's the beauty of it, because you didn't take the physicality of the artist, but you took the philosophy of each artist and
right,
incorporated that into your narrative. Is it
yeah,
not?
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely,
I
absolutely,
think that's where the film is totally different, because very few people have attempted that. People have given tribute, maybe in the beginning end, but you have gone to their what they call inner eye, creative eye, and took some inspirations and put it in your film,
yeah,
which I think is very unique, and I hope you will get the due recognition which you deserve, because very few people have done it in recent times. I have not seen a film which does dabble in this creative milieu, because very few people, they have good narrative, good subject, everything, but getting into the creative minds of masters and trying to interpret them in your own way, I think it's very, very unique. And we were lucky to see your film, and I wish all the best for the film and your release. I'm sure people in Bengal or Calcutta, where all these artists are appreciated, will appreciate your work. And thank you very much for your time.
thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.